everybody.
Hi, friends. Well, from beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up on the show, we're going to be talking about the really sad fact that over 70% of human beings
On this earth.
whole planet, live in countries that severely discriminate against the non-religious. So,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
That's a sobering thought for you. And guess what? It might feel like it's the United States sometimes.
Yeah, but it ain't.
It ain't.
It ain't.
All
Hence,
right.
we are doing this podcast.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. All right. But first, Dan, Christmas just happened. Just happened, everybody.
Well, for these guys.
For our listeners, it's
for
just
you
happened.
listening
For
at
us,
home.
it's still before Christmas. But I have an article here that made me sort of giggle because it points out that this year Christmas falls on Sunday.
Sure.
And woe is me, what are all the churches going to do that are worried about attendance?
What?
Well, because people want to be at home opening their Christmas gifts.
I thought Christmas was like the one time people actually go to church.
Apparently, if you're Catholic. No, if you are Protestant in this country, there is a chance that your church will just be closed this Christmas. Or that it was
Fuck off,
closed
Jesus,
this
I want to
Christmas.
be with my kids.
Yeah, no, seriously. And like the pastors are like, they're like, well, you know, like the last time this happened was in 2016 and like nobody showed up. So what's the point? Right. I'm not exaggerating too much right here. Let's see. It says, Christmas is considered by most Christians to be the second most significant religious holiday of the year.
Wait, what? Second most?
Easter is the most.
Oh man, in my life, that shit would never have flown. When I was a religious guy, like, no, it's Christmas all the way.
That's because Mormons don't really get Easter.
That's true. Mormons really don't.
Mormons are bad at Easter.
They're bad at Easter. That's true.
Let's see. But it says, but most Protestants do not attend church services on Christmas Day. Oh, when it falls on a weekday, right? So they're sort of pointing out like Catholics do, right?
Yeah, Catholics, it's the only time they go to church. Christmas and Easter, and that's it.
Catholics are kind of screwed. It's kind of why they do the midnight mass thing, right? So Christmas Eve, you go to mass, and technically part of it's falling into Christmas Day, so then you don't have to worry about it anymore.
You've done double duty.
You've gotten it taken care of, and now you don't have to worry about like what is your family going to do Christmas morning.
Okay.
Right? Get up for church or do what everybody else would rather do. You know, all of the other times that Christmas is any day but Sunday, you don't have this worry. You get up, you open your gifts, you lounge about in your pajamas, maybe you have like a little brunch thing with friends or family come over, whatever, right? Like you have a thing that you do. And so so Christmas traditions, and this is what these pastors are recognizing, are hard for a lot of families to break. And so they're just like, we're not going to go to church. We'll just skip church this year, you know.
Yeah, I don't think it's hard for them to break. They're just not going to do it. They're just not interested. No thanks.
Yeah.
We have way too much fun.
Right.
Doing our family thing.
Well, I guess there's a number of more hardline pastors who get pretty judgy about these pastors who are closing.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. They're mad.
This is J.D. Greer.
Oh, yeah.
The president of the Southern Baptist Convention from 2018 to 2021.
Yeah.
Sunday is the Lord's Day and ought to be a day you spend with the family of Christ. But I don't want to be the Pharisees of this generation where I turn it into some kind of rule there's never an exception for, right? Oh,
It's
he's
so-
actually okay with it. He's like basically, he also acknowledges that COVID had basically broke church attendance.
Yeah. Church is dead now. We don't do church anymore.
Here's Kevin DeYoung. He's, I don't think he's anybody actually that important. But he says, we've all heard sermons on Jesus is the reason for the season. When churches cancel their services, he says the message is something more like, hey, it's Christmas and Jesus may not be the reason for the season. Right? Because I mean, and he does kind of have a point if you look at it from a religious perspective, you know, because like they're putting the gift giving and all of the non-religious Christmas traditions in front of the one that, you know,
look, what
the
they're
church
doing,
wants, which is you showing up to fucking church.
What they're doing, Franklin, is they are admitting what is actually important about Christmas to literally everyone who celebrates it.
Yes. It is so,
which is just,
yeah.
It is about celebrating with family.
Yeah.
It is about enjoying yourself. It's about fun. It is not about Jesus.
It is so completely co-opted by the secular version of Christmas, and it's great. But here's the thing.
Much better.
Like seriously, folks, like, do you need this stupid holiday, right? To like remind you about Jesus? Believe me, we know you haven't forgotten about Jesus.
Right.
The rest of the year, you're going on and on and on about Jesus. Let these poor people have a Sunday where they can just fucking be with their family anyway. Well, they're not going to forget about Jesus. You won't shut up about Jesus.
I have to remind you, Frank, that half of the point of what a pastor does, he's out there to make people feel bad about themselves and what they're doing.
Right.
And so this is a great opportunity.
It's key, yeah.
To make just to reinforce that you are a piece of shit of a person, and you don't deserve love.
These pastors that are just letting people do whatever they want and not go to church, like their churches are closed in 5 years.
Right?
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to take us up to the Great White North.
Ooh, yeah.
Cross the border into Canada, up into Winnipeg.
Ooh, chilly up there this time of year.
Yeah, and especially right now. I think
that's right now.
There's a horrible thing happening
like
to many parts of the country, and not it kind of missed us. I love it.
It's like
and anyway,
negative 200 up there.
It is indeed. But Winnipeg is home to the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, which
okay,
sounds nice.
Yeah, I like that.
It's I appreciate rights as a human, and I think that all humans should have a few of them. It's a good thing in general. But here's the thing: not everyone appreciates all of the rights. There are those that do not appreciate some of the rights, and one whole set of rights that is decidedly unappreciated by a lot of folks is them gay rights, them LGBTQ rights to sort of live as everyone else would like to live, and carve out their own little way in the world.
Right.
So apparently, multiple schools would take field trips to the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, but ask the museum to cover over certain displays.
Wait,
certain
what?
Yeah. And shockingly, for a few years, they did it. Literally, Canada's institution devoted to human rights were willing to just sort of block the LGBTQ wing so that the Christian students didn't have to see that gays might have rights too.
Boy, that's accommodating to a fault. That's polite to a fault right there.
That is ugliness right there. It's a human rights violation to do that, for God's sake. Anyway, that was back in like 2015 to 2017.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. We've matured as a people since then.
Right.
I think.
They have matured. The Canadians have.
Well, I mean, as a humanity.
No, humanity hasn't matured at all. I think we can all agree that has not happened. However, what did happen was somebody got wind of this happening, and you know, the papers got a hold of it, and the institution, the museum, ceased this practice. However, you know, these journalists who were out to try and report the story, CBC News, etc., were trying to figure out what schools had actually gotten this accommodation.
Oh, wow.
And the schools immediately launched in to beg the court to keep them anonymous so that they didn't have to be outed, be doxxed by the CBC.
Whatever.
And just recently, the Canadian courts have ruled that no, schools, you're out. You're coming out. So
Your hatred must be on display.
Sterling West Pembina, which is a Christian school in St. Vincent, Minnesota, which is just below the border, and Sterling North Stonewall, which is in Stonewall, Manitoba, just north of Winnipeg, were the two. They were the two Sterling schools that managed for a while to go and see only the human rights that they were interested in, and none of the ones that make them feel icky.
Why would they even go to the museum in the first place?
Right?
It just doesn't seem like something that
you guys
they would even
don't
want.
like human rights.
Right.
Why are you here?
That's amazing.
So anyway, that's just a weird, ugly thing that happened, and now we know
in
that,
Canada, of all places.
right? Get your act together, Canada. Come on.
All right. Dan, it's the ongoing story of the drag queen story hour.
Oh,
This will not end as a story.
And no, because they've really the evil assholes have really hyped it up. It is their new they've hitched their wagon to this idea.
Oh yeah. And it just got uglier this week.
Oh good. So
lest you thought this story was just going to sit there and simmer quietly. No. So in New York City, there's a city council member by the name of Eric Botcher, who is a gay man, and he has supported the drag queen story hour events in the New York City libraries.
Sure.
And these protesters, these kind folk who are speaking their minds, they're concerned. These concerned citizens, that's what I should really call them.
Yes.
These concerned citizens, well, they decided that they were going to show up at his office.
Sure.
And where they were screaming and banging on his office door and vandalizing the hallway, I believe.
Right.
And they graffitied the word groomer,
of course,
all over the place, which of course is what they like to say.
It's their new rallying cry
is doing that. It's these drag queens grooming children as though they were pedophiles, going after these kids. I mean, nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, I don't feel like I need to go into this part of it, but the program in New York City, and nationally, I guess I should say, the Drag Queen Story Hour, the events they sponsor nationally, the participants have to go through background checks, right?
Right.
The New York City library system has a child safety course that they are required to take. And aside from all of that, it's a public event. Yeah. Where parents have chosen, they've made a choice about their child's sort of extracurricular activities, and they've taken them to a fucking storytelling hour.
Yeah.
And that's it.
For fun.
For fun. And it's the parents' right to make these kind of decisions.
Well, and also, let us be clear. Doing background checks is so much more than religious institutions do.
No kidding. Yeah, no kidding, right? Where there actually is grooming taking place.
Where they got the term grooming from to then apply.
Right.
It is such a dodge.
Well, anyway, so they were out there for a while, banging on his door, causing a stir or whatever. I think they might have left or they were escorted out.
Was he inside?
I believe he was at the time.
Oh, wow.
Because he left and he went to services at his synagogue. And as he was coming out of the synagogue, his phone went nuts. He was getting texts from his neighbors from his apartment building.
Oh God.
And he's like, oh no. So he runs home where the police were already there and protesters had broken into the building and were, causing this big scene out on the streets. They again were graffitiing both inside the hallway of the building and the exterior of the building. And one of his neighbors, I watched the video. I saw this part. One of his neighbors was coming back from walking his dog. It was a 52-year-old man out walking his dog. And he comes back and he's like, come on. He sort of confronts the protesters. He's like, you're just making a lot of noise. Go home, right? Get out of here. And the protesters, and there were a bunch of them, right? They turn on this man. One of them is sort of threatening he has this cigarette right in his face. Oh my God. And he's threatening to burn his face. Right. And so this man, he turns and, is just kind of walking away, going back down the street away from his building. And one of them, and I mean, it is aggressive and violent. One of them comes running and pushes him from behind. And he slams into a car that's parked. Holy
shit.
And so his face is cut, he scraped knee, so forth and so on.
And of course, all of this protects the children.
All of this, though, they're absolutely. While they were doing this, they stopped all drag queen story hours clearly from proceeding and saved the children from the horrible drag queens. But no, they let's see, some of the stuff that they were yelling. It's so weird. How come you don't have police officers reading to the kids? They were yelling. How come you don't have firefighters reading to the kids? Both of these things probably do happen but definitely could happen. Yeah. Right?
Nobody's stopping that.
That's not what these people do. These people organize drag queens. Yeah. If you want cops, organize cops. And then it's like, are you grooming them, Eric? Right?
Right.
Are you trying to sexualize children, Eric? So really nasty. And I
wonder how it works in their mind that reading a children's book to children sexualizes them.
Yeah.
Because you're in fancy clothes when you do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does that work in your brain?
I don't know. But there were at least 141 protest attacks or significant threats against drag events in the United States this year so far. And so
it's not going to get any better anytime soon.
Yeah. It's just crazy. We've talked about it ad nauseum, but it's just crazy that this has turned into this thing. Yeah. It's such a strange thing for them to be protesting against. It feels like such a strange thing to have to stand up for. It's just weird. I'm confounded by the whole thing.
Just so dumb.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of people who put on little pageant shows and talk to children, the Catholic Church has taken an action that they probably should have taken, I don't know, just years and years ago. They have defrocked a priest, which, by the way, if defrocking happened at Drag Queen Story Hour, that would be an issue. If they actually defrocked, but that's a different kind of frock, and that's not what
I would love it though for a drag queen who's broken the rules somehow to have to turn in, their dress.
And yes, exactly. You have to turn in your dress and then sashay away. So Frank Pavone, I always want to pronounce it Pavone, but it's Pavone, kind of got famous in 2016 when he released a video of himself. This is a very, he is a very anti-abortion priest. This was his big stump issue. And he did an anti-abortion video which used as a prop an ostensibly real human fetus.
Oh, God.
Laid out in front of him while he discussed how awful abortions are. Which
that's
is
awful.
Horrifying.
Like,
what are you doing?
That's disgusting.
Yeah, he is a disgusting person, but that didn't stop his career. He was fine as a priest, ever since then. They did do the traditional Catholic shuffle when he was getting, he was literally, his bishop was like, you got to knock this shit off. You are freaking everybody out. And so he was shuffled away to an undisclosed diocese or an undisclosed workstation. He was, so
I'm just imagining him actually having to shuffle away,
Yes.
like a little step to the left, a little.
Maybe he was in Buffalo. Maybe he shuffled off to Buffalo. Anyway, it was unclear where he landed, but he was doing, he was originally in Amarillo, Texas. And then,
He was being punished.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, Amarillo.
Oh, come on, Amarillo. You know what you do. Anyway, he had none of that got him in enough trouble for him to lose his priestness.
Jesus.
What offense do you think was the straw that broke the camel's back in him no longer being allowed to be a priest? What was the thing that pushed it over the edge? And I'll give you a hint. It was a tweet.
I don't know. I don't know, Dan.
Reportedly, he called Joe Biden a goddamn loser, and said that Biden supporters can't say a goddamn thing in support of their loser candidate without using the word Trump. Now, they don't care that he has and continues to expressly support one candidate over another.
Right.
Which should endanger his diocese's tax-exempt status in the United States. The law says that, but everybody knows that's a joke here, and it doesn't actually happen. No. They were mad at the goddamn.
No.
They were mad at the blasphemy.
Shut up. Shut up. That's hysterical.
Yeah, and that seems to be the thing that did it.
He can the things that priests do.
Yeah. And he's been getting away with all kinds of shit. It's basically politics, fetus. That's all
you
that came
could have
out of him.
added pedophile to that. and he still would be fine.
There'd be some question as to whether or not probably he would be asked to retire or, sent to
he'd be promoted to something at the Vatican.
Right, exactly.
Oh,
but boy,
geez.
apparently, I mean, the truth is he was probably pissing people off left and right the whole time, and they just were waiting for him to one more slip up. It was a 3 strikes and you're out sort of thing with HR.
I'm sure,
but he has indeed been defrocked.
All right,
and will no longer be
no more
a priest.
frock for him.
Yeah,
all right.
And, it's hard to find a new career when you're 50-something, 60-something years old.
Yeah, he probably has some money stashed away. He'll be fine. All right, Dan. So I stumbled upon this article in the Salt Lake Tribune That's our local newspaper that's not owned by the Mormons.
Yes.
And it's asking the question of what do you do with churches when there's no longer a church, right? When there's no longer a congregation to fill the church. And apparently, because this is it's happening right now here in Salt Lake, there's a Protestant church that's closing. And the Tribune is covering it. Yeah, one of those old mid-century ones up on Foothill.
Really?
Yeah.
Look, it is my dream to buy a church. Patreon goal. Help me buy a church, you guys.
Already purchased.
Damn it.
And set to be knocked down for apartment buildings.
Of course it is.
Which, yeah, whatever. And the article goes into like, sort of what are these congregations doing? Because, it's not like there's no congregation left. It's just too small to like fill up this old church that back in the 70s, had 350 to 450 members, right? And it has now dwindled to only 25 to 35 regular attendees, right?
Oh, that's just, I mean, it warms the cockles of the heart, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, it does. I mean, these people are losing community and their center. And so it's a sad time for them. But they found new accommodations at another church down the way. They're going to be in taking up a basement space in some other church.
We're the basement church now.
One of the details is they wanted to take their big cross that was back behind the front of the up in front of the church, right?
Yeah.
And so they would have something of the old in this new space.
Sure.
And the cross was too big for the space. They actually had to cut it down. But fortunately, crosses are like sort of designed to be like cut down. You'll never notice.
Modular, baby.
You'll never notice, right? If it's if you take a little off here, a little off there. But anyway, so the article goes into some interesting statistics. Apparently, the average congregation in the year 2000, had, and this is nationwide, 137 people, which seems like a low number, but okay, whatever. That number has fallen to 65 in today's America, right? And so at 100 with 137 people, there were still just enough people in these congregations that they could pay a pastor. They could, have a choir. They could maintain their building, right?
Sure.
They still had the means to do that. At 65, it becomes really tricky for
you can't afford your building anymore.
Yeah. Especially when it's 25. And so a lot of buildings are going into disrepair. The smart ones are doing what this group is doing, which is just sell it off to a developer, the getting's good, right?
Yeah.
And, but anyway, the article also goes into the Mormons. And Dan, this is really interesting. Apparently, the LDS Church has basically stopped selling off meeting houses to just any old buyer without including a clause that they have to tear down the building.
Oh, interesting.
So the church will either demolish it first or, sorry, developer, you have to use it for something else. Because apparently there was a LDS meeting house here in Utah that they sold off, and it was turned into a state liquor store.
Oh, really? That's wonderful. I happen to know of an LDS church. I mean, there's an LDS church here in town that is used as a theater.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
An old one.
Yeah. They probably don't care so much about that one. They probably are like, hey, if it goes to an arts organization, okay, maybe there's going to be some stuff that whatever, but it's a community meeting space. But they were really bothered about this state liquor store. It was probably one of those more like those, not the official, like owned by the state liquor stores, like down in southern Utah. And apparently, because half of the building was a state liquor store and the other half of the building, they punched a hole in the chapel wall to make an auto body shop. And I guess the community like went nuts. They were just like, what did you do to our old church? Blah, blah. And it's like, well, they sold it off, right? They decommissioned it. Yeah. And it also tells the story of this guy who 50 years ago, this fellow who, cares about Mormon culture and whatnot. He went around and he cataloged roughly 600 Latter-day Saint structures that included chapels, tabernacles, Relief Society buildings.
Relief Society, well, we won't explain what that is.
He says that at least 65% of those have been torn down because the church would rather destroy their past than let it go on to some other use. But when you think about that, I mean, we know about sort of the shifting demographics in this area and how Mormon, like everybody out there who's not that familiar with Salt Lake City's not that Mormon, right? Because the Mormons all moved out. Right. And but they left a bunch of churches. Then the church was like, oh, well, we got to do something with this.
And there are so many that are being decommissioned right now.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to see how many even Mormon churches in Salt Lake City, like, you'd think that Mormon churches in Utah, they're safe, but no, they're being decommissioned left and right.
It's lovely. It's a great time to be alive. It's a great time to live in Salt Lake City.
Yeah. Things are improving, guys. It's happening. Oh man. Well, I'm gonna close this out with so recently, every year they do the Kennedy honors, the Kennedy Center honors. Mm-hmm. And they pick a variety of people, usually artists, to honor.
Oh yeah.
I think this year I saw a picture and it was like there was U2 in the back, and I think George Clooney was an honoree this year.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then one of the honorees was America's former sweetheart, Amy Grant.
Okay.
Remember Amy Grant?
I think so.
She had a few hits back in I think the 90s, and she was a big she did Christian music. She was one of the few that where her Christian music, she had a couple of crossover hits that were just sort of mainstream hits. But yeah, three multi-platinum albums, 6 number 1 hits, and then a fuck ton of Dove awards, which they call the Christian Grammys. So she was a big deal. And so she's being honored by the Kennedy Center for lifetime artistic achievements. And that's nice. But one of the things that happened when she was honored is that the Washington Post did a profile of her.
Oh, okay.
And, they interviewed her. And one of the things that came out in that profile was that she and her husband, Vince Gill, country music guy, decided that they were going to host their niece's lesbian wedding on their property.
Okay.
Cute, nice. Her quote was, she said, honestly, from a faith perspective, I do always say, Jesus, you narrowed it down to 2 things: love God and love each other. And she said, she said, hey, that's pretty simple. And would that it were so simple, but a few very prominent voices decided to jump in and make sure that everyone knew that she is a horrible person.
Oh my God.
For hosting this same-sex wedding on their farm. None other than Franklin Graham tweeted, it was a Facebook post, and basically called it out, and literally calls out that quote about love God and love each other, and says, yes, we are to love God and love each other, but if we love God, we will seek to obey his word. Jesus told us, if you love me, keep my commandments, blah, 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 blah. And here's the thing. Jesus didn't say, if you love me, shun the people who don't keep my commandments. As a matter of fact, he was pretty explicit about the opposite of that.
Right.
But yes, Graham went on to say, God defines what is sin, not us. And his word is clear that homosexuality is sin. And he's just livid. He is just livid. It's a long post. And then Tony Perkins, who's another sort of hate monger, he jumped on to say, too many Christians have conflated love with affirmation. We love everyone, but we cannot affirm all choices. God so loved the world, he sent his son to save us from our sin. He did not send him to affirm us in our sin. Guess what? I don't affirm God sending his son and then murdering him. I think I'm not going to affirm that sin. I just think it's so dumb how it's not affirmation to like let your family use your farm for an event.
So what? But
maybe it is.
What if it is?
Yeah.
Like,
and what if it is?
Like, it's just one. Okay. I mean, I can't even believe this is the point I'm making, but it's just one person's version of Christianity versus another.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and that's the whole problem with it. Right.
Yeah.
Is that everybody has their own thing. But the thing that blows my mind is, come on, guys. Do you know how much of this country like approves of gay marriage? You get,
right.
Like, can't you just read the writing on the wall?
Yeah, read the
and
room.
Figure out how these Christians figured it out.
Yeah.
Right. To where they're just like, yeah, you know, what's the big deal? It's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
But I think that the point that you made is correct, that this is like, you got to love the infighting, because there's not a single Christian out there that thinks that another Christian is doing it right.
Right.
Every Christian is certain that every other Christian is Christianing absolutely incorrectly. And it's kind of delightful.
Oh God. And Franklin Graham, like
he's
what a moral compass he is for this country. Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Like, such a pure soul.
Yeah. A truly a great voice in our spiritual,
for right and
realm.
wrong. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you, ladies and gentlemen at home, would like to tell us about your favorite Amy Grant moment, please feel free to write into us. Podcast at thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442. Stick around. There's more show coming up.
Yeah. Well, Frank,
Dan,
you know, you talked about how a lot of Christian congregations are closing up shop or having to downsize, having to move out of their place of worship because of dwindling numbers. But there's other reasons why people have to leave their building. And the Christian hate preacher Jonathan Shelley has made a video out in the parking lot of his building, and he is flanked, or rather behind him are very, very visibly protesters. We've played him before on the show, and he's just a peach of a fella. But this is his message from the parking lot.
All right.
Hey everybody, this is Pastor Jonathan Shelley from Steadfast Baptist Church, and I wanted to give you an update about our church location. We're actually unfortunately gonna have to move again for next year, and so obviously we've been protested, like every single week for really years at this point, and it doesn't seem like it's gonna change anytime soon. Well, the reality is, nobody really wants to lease to us, so it makes it very difficult. I am still working on a few options. We've been hit with a lot of legal fees and all kinds of different issues. If you really want to be a part of our church, it's never been a better time. Our church is growing. We have a lot of people that love the Lord, and everything's looking really up.
Oh boy, what a moment to pitch joining the church.
Right?
We just keep getting kicked out of places because everybody hates us.
Literally, no one will house us. Come on and join. People will yell at you as you come to church. It just sounds great. It sounds like a really fun place to worship.
That is a sales pitch. I mean, for people who like the Christian persecution thing, you know, like this is great for.
It's gold.
Yeah,
it's gold. You can't get more persecuted than you can't find a place to have your church.
Like, isn't there a moment? Is there not a moment where these people go, you know, maybe we're doing something wrong?
It's that line from what was the show where the Nazis turn to each other and go, "Are we the baddies?" I think we are the baddies. Exactly. Oh Lord, you love to see it. You love to see it. All right. Well, we had some folks write into us. Blue wrote into us, "Dear Frank and Dan, you are the light of my world." Well, that makes sense. We're pretty great. And then Blue has included the hashtag creepy as fuck LDS advertisement. Okay. Blue goes on to say, "I hate religious ads on YouTube, but I know watching them provides the content creator ad revenue. I was not prepared for today's onslaught. I hear a familiar voice emanating from the TV and look up to see the LDS CEO's face. His dead eyes and creepy as fuck occasional attempt at a smile, inviting people to join his theocratic oligarchy. It was mesmerizing. I control enough capital to eliminate poverty, but I still need 10% of your income."
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mormonism, man. People believe that shit. That's some crazy stuff.
Totally nuts.
Ruthie wrote into us. Ruthie says, "Dear Frank and Dan, I'm listening to the new episode, and I'm about to lose my mind.
Oh.
As a retired elementary school librarian, the story about the school district creating a book selection committees was very triggering. The decision to include clergy persons is certainly an awful one, but the decision to have such a committee in the first place is beyond ridiculous. I have a master's degree in library science. Selecting books for the school library is my thing. Literally. It's what I do. It's what I was trained to do.
Right.
Any job description for a school librarian, aka media specialist, position will include this as one of the primary duties. The problem here goes deeper than what it would seem. Librarians are usually way more progressive than their neighbors in conservative areas. In my experience, this drove people crazy. I've had parents, teachers, principals, and yes, school board members march into my office and demand that I, 1, order a certain Christian book series, 2, take books about other religions off the shelves. These were not pro or con, mind you, just information about world religions. 3, take a Sharpie to all the words in the books that they deem objectionable.
Oh my God.
4,
yeah, of course.
Remove biographies from the shelves that they objected to. These included, among others, biographies of Martin Luther King Jr., Barack Obama, Gandhi, and Bill Gates. And 5, I mean, Gates, we could lose Gates. It would be fine. And 5, get rid of all the books with magical or, quote, dark themes.
Oh my God.
There goes a good 75% of the most popular titles out of the 4th and 5th grade readers. Oh, man. In almost every case, I was able to reason with the person and get them to see why the book they objected to was a valuable addition to the school library. This story illustrates the need conservative Christians feel to silence everyone who doesn't agree with their agenda. This story fills me with despair because the children in that district won't have the opportunity to learn what Hindus believe or know who Malcolm X was. They won't get to read Harry Potter or any of the silly but fun series about time-traveling kids or neighbors who are actually monsters. These children are being stripped of their right to read the books they want to read and learn about the people and things that they want to know about. These are dark times indeed when school boards feel the need to keep the librarians they hired from doing the job they hired them to do. Couldn't agree more, Ruthie.
Yeah.
But I mean, come on, just because you're trained literally, like you have a master's degree in it, you think you're better at choosing books than Karen, the mom of like the shittiest kid in school? I don't know. Anyway, thank you for that, Ruthie. So, Franklin,
Dan.
it is the time of year when giving is on everyone's mind.
Oh, yeah.
And, look, I understand people want to give to their family and loved ones right now. That makes sense. But we do have some folks to thank. Casey decided to part with some of their lovely money, and they did a one-time donation to us. So they are now a deacon in whatever the church is that we are pretending we're a part of that can bestow magic powers. So that's fun. Thank you so much to Casey. As for the rest of you, listen here. If you deem us worthy also of a little bit of your generosity, it can be as little as $1 an episode. Please feel free to go to thankgodimatheist.com and click on the Support Us tab. And you can be a patron at Patreon. There's the Frank and Dan Diary that you can get exclusive access to, or you can just give do a one-time donation or whatever you want to do, and we greatly appreciate it.
Indeed, Dan. We most certainly do. And as always, we have our top donor to thank, our Lord and Savior, Davis. Stick around, there's more show coming up. Dan.
Yes.
We do this thing on this show where we harp on how tough it is sometimes to be an atheist in these United States. And I'm not saying that it's easy, right? But
it can be easy for some.
It can be.
I feel extremely hard.
I feel
for
pretty
others.
lucky for one. Being surrounded by atheists, husband and friends and whatnot. But yeah, there's parts of the country where it's rough. But we want to take a quick look, and this is not to obviously diminish how tough it is for anybody in this country, but there are places in this world where it is rough.
Yeah,
to say
literally.
the least.
So there was an annual report was just released, the Freedom of Thought report, and it has. So I mean, it's basically just looking at how free thought is in different countries around the world. They literally cover every country. And here's the thing: more than 80 countries in this world have laws that criminalize apostasy, blasphemy, or atheism.
Yeah.
Criminalize. That's not just like, it is criminal to not believe in God in some places.
Right.
And now, and then the punishments for these things range from, fines to imprisonment. And in the case of 13 countries, death.
Yeah.
Literally death is on the books as a possible punishment for doing what you and I are doing right now, Frank.
Oh, yeah. We have officially made it impossible to travel to certain parts of this world, you and me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
this stuff's out there.
We don't know. We could be on a list somewhere.
we easily could
and
be
just
on a list.
blithely cross the border into Iran or Saudi Arabia and suddenly bye-bye.
First of all, I don't think we're going to be blithely crossing any of those borders, but
no. I think you and I are a little too keenly aware of this, but literally so this report claims that less than 4% of humans on this earth live in countries that are truly secular in the sense that they literally have separation of religious and political power. They have a deliberate policy of neutrality and equality toward all beliefs, and an interest in maximizing freedom of religion.
Right.
Less than 4%.
Yeah.
That is That's a little stunning to me.
That's, yeah, because like, I mean, like, because the 4%, like, do you have any sense of where? Did we ever figure that out?
Yeah, actually, so
Yeah.
so I think it's the U.S. is one of them.
Yeah.
Norway and Sweden, Iceland, France, Belgium.
Okay.
I think South Africa. There's a few places that are doing pretty well.
And all of us together only make up 4%?
Yeah,
Of
I don't know
humanity?
exactly which. Yeah,
Jesus
the truth is that
Christ.
I really did like plow through a bunch of this thing, but most of what they have, you have to go by pictures of the world, maps of the world, where they are, where
Your geography just isn't that good.
My geography is good, but like, do I know what they're talking about when they say, which countries are? Anyway, I'm just going by the color code is what I'm going by. But I will say this: you look at these maps, and they've got it broken down into like different. They have an overall map, and then they've got maps that talk about, which countries are doing well or poorly with their constitution/government.
Mm-hmm.
It's no surprise that like Northern Africa, the Middle East, and Asia, including China and Indonesia and stuff, not doing great.
Right.
On that. Education and children's rights is another one, another category. Society and community, meaning like, you'll get beat up if someone, by the neighbors. Maybe the law won't come down on you, but you might get beat up by the neighbors if they find out that you stopped believing in Allah or whatever, or in Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that, Brazil, Mexico, they're not doing great on that one, but also, still all of Eastern Europe doesn't do well with society and community. Italy doesn't do well.
Not surprised.
Yeah. Freedom of expression and humanist values, like the freedom to just say, just talk, not great. It doesn't always go well. And this is where it gets surprising, because like countries like Germany don't do well on that. Poland, whatever. So I think the point here is that the world we still have a long way to go. Like, it's kind of shocking. The thought that over 70% of people live, there are sort of esoteric ideas. There are ideas contained in this that can't be quantified, but you can quantify whether or not a country has laws that discriminate. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You can quantify that.
Mm-hmm.
And over 70% of humans are living in countries that severely discriminate. That's the wording that they've used in this.
Yeah.
Severely discriminate against the non-religious.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
Yeah, it's wild. I pulled up the map because I didn't realize there was a map until you said that. But
Okay.
I found the map and I'm clicking around and it's kind of surprising. I want to know more about, some of these places that kind of surprise me, to be honest.
Yeah.
Finland doesn't do very well, for example.
Not doing as well as they should be.
As they should be, right? Australia, Canada, right? Not doing as well as you would expect on this list.
Right. Not terrible. They're not
they're
in the red zone.
They're on par with Spain, and Argentina. Not sure exactly what that means, but yeah, like, and then like, places like Mongolia doing quite well,
Doing
right?
great.
And it's like, I kind of really need to dig in a little bit more on this about these specific countries. The overall statistics are bleak. And it sort of reminds, you brought it up. This is a time of the year where we think about, giving. And I'm kind of like, wow, like there's some international work that needs to be done right now.
Yeah.
Like we should probably be turning our focus towards some organizations that are working toward, more secularism in some of these places. I mean,
that's an interesting thought.
I never would have thought that I would need to donate to some secularist Canadian organization. Like I'm now concerned about
because it's not quite as good as the U.S. in terms. But no,
but I'm really concerned.
I would like to hear from our listeners.
Yeah.
If you live in a country that ain't ours, which we have lots of international listeners, please do write into us and let us know what it's like in your country, and if there is an organization that you think is worthy of some money. I give to the Freedom from Religion Foundation here. I give to the ACLU.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe it's a good idea to start giving to organizations that are trying to enshrine some of these rights in some of these other countries. Because I got news for you, Germany. You're not doing as well as maybe you should be.
Jesus.
And truly, like some of these places, because you and I, we do stories on people in Bangladesh or in, Iran or in Northern Africa or whatever, where people are literally being killed.
Mm-hmm.
Or, Pakistan,
mm-hmm.
whatever. People are being killed because they stopped believing, because they literally honestly took a look at at the belief system that they were grown up, that they sort of was foisted upon them as a child. And they went, oh, you know what? This actually just doesn't make sense to me. I don't believe this. And that's a criminal offense in so many countries. It's literally against the law to realize you don't, to act in accordance with your conscience.
Yeah.
So that's not great. I don't approve of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just a fun thing to think about going into the new year. But yeah, do let us know of the good work that's being done out in the world.
Yeah.
And because we'd love to highlight it, and let us know how you're doing out there, because 70% of us aren't in a great spot.
Yeah, it's rough.
Well, if you want to do that, if you want to send these things into us, please do so by writing into us podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message about it. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Yeah, go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist. Click the like button.
And if you'd like to join one of our members-only lounges, all you have to do is honestly just be a listener. You can find them by going to thankgodimatheist.com/members-only.
Yeah, that's on Discord, that's on Facebook, those are great. Thanks so much to the Red Rock Hot Club for the use of their fine music.
And thanks to Gordon Johnston for the use of his music.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in. We sure do appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.